Hello readers. Please, love, like, comment, share, follow, and subscribe. Thank you. CEO Daddy. Chapter 1292. Who was the one who felt wronged? Alvina Miller was dumbstruck. She had always thought that Kelly adored Joseph Grant, just like all the other women in the office, who merely admired and worshipped him. And although they always said that they liked the Mr. Vice President, they drew a clear line in their heart. They knew that they couldn't do it, but they could only go through the process to brighten their mood a little. But what Alvina didn't expect was that not only did Kelly like Joseph, Kelly had even said the word love just now. Kelly loved Joseph Grant and wanted to struggle free from the shackles of her secret crush to confess to him that, Kelly, it's not that I don't want to help you. It's just that I feel that you and Mr. Vice President aren't too realistic, right? What if he has a girlfriend? Alvina really didn't want to hit Kelly, nor did she want to hurt Kelly's weak heart. She only wanted to advise Kelly to wake up and not sink down like this. Impossible. Mr. Vice President doesn't have a girlfriend. I can see that. Kelly immediately retorted loudly. You shouldn't be able to see it with your eyes. Maybe he really can hide it well. Maybe he has a woman he likes, and he's planning their future. Alvina, do you really have to strike me like this? I treat you as a good friend, but you actually pour cold water on me. Kelly's emotions were weak to begin with, and at this moment, even more so, her eyes were filled with tears, as if she had suffered an enormous grievance. Alvina Miller quickly stopped, and did not dare to continue. Alvina was stunned like a fool, and did not know what to do. Alvina was an insider. She just wanted to do something to make her friends sober up. Why did it seem like she was hurting Kelly? Alvina, you have a good family and a good boyfriend. Of course, you wouldn't understand how hard it is to secretly love someone. I know what you want to say, but don't you want to say that I'm not worthy of Joseph? I know that I don't deserve it, but I really like him too much. I can't hide my feelings for him anymore. I have no other thoughts. I just want Joseph to know that there's a woman like me who deeply loves him, and I don't ask for anything in return. I will continue to try my best to get closer to him. Kelly used a tissue to wipe her tears. While wiping away her tears, Kelly laughed at herself, and then begged Alvina Miller with eyes full of hope. Alvina Miller suddenly wanted to escape from the restaurant. Alvina should not have come to eat this meal with her mouth full of curses. Now it was okay, Kelly pleaded with a sincere face. But Alvina didn't want to help her. She really didn't want to. Kelly, I don't mean to strike a blow to you. I just want to advise you to be more clear-headed. After all, if all of you are stuck here, wouldn't you be injured even more? Alvina Miller eased her tone and sincerely advised, I know you have good intentions. I don't blame you for thinking that, but if there is hope? I remember when he helped me up that day. He looked at me with a very gentle gaze. Moreover, when there was an opportunity to work by his side that day, he would also sneakily look at me. Alvina, I think that he must love me. It's just that due to his esteemed identity, he's too embarrassed to confess to me. Kelly's self-righteousness was already at the invincible realm. Kelly truly felt that she wasn't mistaken. Recently, she felt that Joseph Grant had been peeping at her more and more times, and that his eyes were extremely gentle. Alvina Miller tapped her forehead a few times as though she already knew what was going on. Every time she stood together with Kelly, when Joseph Grant looked towards her, she would pretend to be aloof and not respond to his gaze. That was why Kelly had a misconception that Joseph Grant was watching carefully. And now that it had found out that Kelly believed it was true. Kelly, Mr. Vice President seems to be very gentle towards everyone. Could you have truly misunderstood him? That, the last time I saw him, I noticed that there was a bite mark on his neck. It seems that a woman bite. Then Mr. Vice President must be allergic. I also saw it. It definitely did not look like a woman's bite. Kelly didn't wait for Alvina Miller to finish speaking, and directly interrupted her in anger. Alvina Miller felt that Kelly was too absolute. Even if Alvina wanted to advise her against it, Alvina would not be able to do so. All right, even if he is allergic, but, I mean, if he had a girlfriend. Alvina, do you know something? Do you know he have a girlfriend? Kelly saw that Alvina Miller had been hinting at her the whole time. Kelly immediately became vigilant, and grabbed onto Alvina Miller's arm, looking as though Kelly wanted to tear Alvina apart as she stared at Alvina Miller and asked, "Ouch, it hurts." It hurts. Alvina Miller felt like Kelly was about to scratch her skin with Kelly's sharp fingertips. She hurriedly said, "Kelly, if you have something to say it nicely. Don't hold on to me like that." "Sorry, I am a bit too excited," Kelly reacted and quickly let go. Alvina Miller looked at her uneasily. "Alvina, does he really have a girlfriend?" Kelly suddenly asked with a gloomy expression. Alvina Miller was startled for a second, and laughed dryly. "Don't you say he didn't do it. Does your boyfriend, Lieutenant Hilton, know anything? Does he tell you anything? If you still treat me as a friend, please tell me." "Actually, I've always been lying to myself, constantly comforting myself that he doesn't have a girlfriend, but I know, there's no way he would lack women by his side. He's so nice. How can other women resist him?" After Kelly said that, she laid on the table and started sobbing, as though she had suffered a huge blow to the table, causing others to not know how to even console her. Alvina Miller's expression became rich. She did not know what to do. She felt that she should leave immediately, and not eat with her future love rivals, and even more so not be good friends. Kelly cried a few times, and once again used a tissue to wipe her tears, while laughing at herself. "If you don't say it, I know that there is definitely a slut by his side. The last time I discovered that he had a bite mark on his neck, with a glance, I can tell that she was bitten by a woman. That slut, I have long seen that she is not a good person. If I had the chance, I would definitely try to seduce him. It is too shameless." Alvina Miller's eyes widened. Who was Kelly cursing at? Kelly actually scolded Alvina Miller? "Kelly, what do you mean by that? Do you know who bite him?" Alvina Miller's face did not look good. Kelly's words were too hurtful. How could Kelly scold a slut so easily? It must be Olivia. That day at the art exhibition, I saw that Olivia was acting strange. A pair of eyes were lovingly staring at Mr. Vice President, wishing that she could throw herself at him. I heard that later on they even went into a room alone to chat. In the afternoon, Mr. Vice President had a bite mark on his neck. Other than her, who else could she be? Kelly made a bold speech based on her guess. Kelly twisted the tissue in her hand hatefully, as if she was going to twist Olivia's neck with it. The more Alvina Miller heard about it, the more she felt that she could not continue to get along with Kelly. Once a woman gave birth to hatred for love, she would do things extremely extreme. "Kelly, I'm sorry, I might not be able to help you, but let me treat you to this meal. My grandfather is not feeling well, I need to go home early, and will be leaving first. Seeing the opportunity, Alvina Miller left and ran over to settle the accounts. Kelly did not chase after Alvina to say anything, and just sat there feeling sad. Alvina Miller fled down the stairs in one breath, her entire person becoming a bit absent-minded. If Kelly knew that she was the woman who had beaten Joseph Grant in the future, wouldn't Kelly hate her to death? Life was like a play. Why did she jump into a pit? If Alvina knew that Kelly had a heavy heart and loved Joseph so much, Alvina wouldn't have become friends with her. She would have stayed away from Kelly, and even if Kelly hated her, Alvina wouldn't have given Kelly a chance to hate her. And now, was the god trying to tease her? While enduring the pain of lovesick, Alvina also had to endure the blame from her love rival. Couldn't Alvina just let her live on properly? Was it a sunny day every day? Alvina Miller drove the car, heading towards her home. It was only 8 o'clock. She had ordered an entire table of dishes, but Alvina hadn't even eaten a single mouthful. Alvina was still hungry, but she didn't know what to eat. Alvina called the aunt who brought dinner, and told the aunt to stay out for dinner with her friends and not bring it. Alvina Miller suddenly saw a pancake shop beside her. She quickly stopped her car and planned to buy some to eat at home. Chapter 1293. Someone was educated. Alvina Miller took the pancake that the owner of the pancake shop was giving off, and when she turned around, she realized that a traffic policeman was pasting a ticket to her car that was parked by the side of the road. She immediately dashed towards him. Then she shouted from afar, "Traffic police, I will leave immediately. Let me go this time." The traffic policeman turned around and looked at her. She was wearing an eye-catching work suit and was also a young and beautiful girl. The young traffic police suddenly felt a little embarrassed and quickly reminded her, "You can't stop here, let's go." "Thank you." Alvina Miller jumped onto the car and drove away. Alvina Miller had avoided the ticket, but she was actually much happier than before. It seemed like her life wasn't that bad after all. After returning to Joseph Grant's house, it was already around 9 p.m., so Alvina Miller dragged her tired body into the living room. Before she could turn on the light, she heard a low and dissatisfied male voice say, "Who are you eating with when you're back so late?" Alvina Miller immediately turned on the light and saw a noble and handsome figure sitting on the sofa. He was wearing a suit and a long windbreaker. When Alvina Miller suddenly saw this man, her emotions were complicated. In that moment, she did not know what to say. "Why are you here again?" Alvina Miller stared at Joseph without blinking. The word again seemed to have worn away the patience of a man. Joseph stood up abruptly and walked towards Alvina step by step with his tall body. His eyes became gloomy. "I ask you, who you go out to eat with? As soon as you entered the new department, you got an appointment." Alvina Miller did not expect him to get angry first. She stood still and did not move, only raising her eyes to look into his eyes. Then, she muttered, "Your face is truly like a demon from a country. No wonder someone fell in love with you for your help. What are you muttering about?" Joseph Grant saw that she did not have any expression of guilt, but instead had a look of disappointment. Alvina Miller was still quite depressed. She turned around and went to the dining hall to pour herself a cup of hot water. Alvina turned around to drink, leaned against the table and continued to stare at the man through the glass. The more she looked, the more confused she became. Joseph Grant felt like he was being ignored by Alvina. What was going on? Alvina went out to eat with someone but didn't say anything. Why did it seem like he was the one who made the mistake? Alvina, who do you eat with? The vicious aura from before had disappeared. Joseph Grant's tone immediately turned gentle, but he still wanted to know her whereabouts. Joseph Grant, there are a lot of women who like you in the office. Have they ever confessed to you? Alvina Miller asked Joseph with a serious face. Joseph Grant's body froze. Why would she suddenly ask this? Did she hear something? Did she want to settle accounts with him? What's wrong? Joseph Grant took 2 steps towards her. His beautiful eyes congealed on her beautiful face, and his mind became tense. Tell me honestly, has anyone ever confessed to you? Alvina Miller's pretty face turned anxious. Yes, Joseph Grant knew that he couldn't lie to her about this, and could only honestly explain. There are still a lot of them. They would secretly give me things, and there would even be people who would write love letters and poems for me. Don't worry, I have never responded to them. Then, if a girl asked me to pass on something to you, what would you think I should do if she had a crush on you and wanted to give you something? Alvina Miller didn't know why, but she actually believed what Joseph said. Only then did she ask about her troubles. How could this happen? Does she know about our relationship? The matter of his engagement to the Miller family was something that only the 2 families' elders knew about, without spreading the news. Unless someone had ulterior motives would investigate it. But to the best of his knowledge, the entire office did not even know about it. No, she thinks that Lieutenant Hilton is my boyfriend. She wants to use me to get Lieutenant Hilton to send you a message. As Alvina Miller said this, she couldn't help but start laughing to herself. The man's expression became unsightly again. He had heard of this ridiculous rumor a long time ago, and it was even Lieutenant Hilton who came over to beg for forgiveness with a stupefied face. At the time, he didn't have any thoughts about it. Let others misunderstand and divert their attention. However, when he heard this woman say it out herself, his mood instantly became stuffy. You don't explain it, right? The man's voice instantly became deep, as if it was ringing in her ears. Alvina Miller suddenly raised her head, and realized that, as she expected, the man had moved closer to her at an unknown time. His thin lips were extremely close to her face, and she could already hear his steady breathing. Alvina Miller didn't have time to explain. The man's thin lips had already ruthlessly blocked her lips. The next second, she felt herself being carried by the man and gently placed on the dining table. Alvina Miller's mind was buzzing. Why was he still carrying her and sitting at the dining table? This was too unruly. However, the man's lips and tongue were overbearing and fierce. How could he give her any extra time to let her think wild thoughts run wild? Her entire body was covered in soft cotton. Her 2 small hands subconsciously hooked onto his neck, unwilling to part ways with him. It was as if a huge accumulation of feelings had suddenly exploded out. A ball of fire burned into the 2 of them, uncontrollable. Wait a moment. Alvina Miller's hand suddenly touched his wound. It was obvious that he was trembling slightly, and the girl suddenly stopped. Wait for what? The man's low laughter resounded in her ears. Let me see your wound. Why do you go to play today? Do you want to die? Only now did Alvina Miller realize that she had been worrying about things that she had been afraid of all day, and that she had to personally inspect them in order to be at ease. No need to look. I'm fine, the man said unsteadily. No, I have to. When Alvina Miller became tyrannical, she did not have any friends. Joseph Grant realized that he was shocked by her domineering eyes. He was startled for a moment, and then, having already let go of the big hands around her waist, he took off his jacket of his own accord. Alvina Miller held her breath until she saw that his wound was not bleeding. Only then did she relax. Wait a minute, your gauze seems to be freshly bandaged. Do you pull it to the wound? Don't lie to me. Alvina Miller immediately squinted her beautiful eyes, revealing a wise and far-sighted expression, as if she could see through everything. Joseph Grant knew that this little girl was not stupid. Yes, the wound has been torn open. However, it has already been treated by the doctor, so there's no danger to my life. Joseph Grant deliberately emphasized the last few words. Alvina Miller didn't know whether to be angry with him or feel sorry for him. You know you're hurt, but you're still playing golf with someone. Why can't you just push it off? Alvina Miller was still angry, because Joseph didn't care about his own body at all. This is related to the political stand. I can't back down. Alvina, I'm not like you. I don't have the ability to return everything back. The man sighed as he gently fastened the button on her chest that he had ripped open. The button was at the top. The white shirt gave off the impression that she had been forcefully kissed by him. It was extremely ambiguous. I know. Alvina Miller's expression changed as she nodded. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Even if they touch my bottom line, I will still retaliate. Joseph Grant was afraid that Alvina was still worried, so he could only smile and console her. Well, if a woman gives you something, that's your bottom line. You can't take it either. Alvina Miller did not know what excitement she felt, and suddenly stressed. Joseph Grant was startled for a second, then burst out laughing. Whose jealousy do you eat? It's that sour. Joseph Grant, I'm not joking with you. You have to keep your distance from them. Furthermore, there's a difference between being polite and being gentle to every woman in the future. You have to grasp your limits. Women are all sensitive creatures, and a single glance from you can potentially harm them for life. So, you have to take care of everything you say and do, and not make them fall for you. Alvina Miller stared into her eyes, and lectured him in all seriousness. The dignified Mr. Vice President had received such an education before, and he had a stupefied expression on his face. Alvina, you have wronged. Other than you, I have never treated a woman as gentle as water. Other than my mother and sister. Joseph Grant imitated his voice and explained in a serious tone. Chapter 1294, Reluctant Separation. Joseph Grant's handsome face was filled with innocence and injustice, causing Alvina Miller to want to teach him a lesson. Her mind was completely blank, so she could only pout her mouth and say, I've already said it clearly. It's fine as long as you remember it. The friend who invited you to dinner tonight likes me. I don't know which one it is, but I'm not sure if I have any impression of it. Joseph Grant knew that if he did not take care of this matter properly, this woman would not be at ease either. She's called Kelly. She said that you helped her before, and she fell, and you helped her up. Alvina Miller also didn't know how Kelly treated Joseph Grant with such deep affection. If Kelly had only fallen down and Joseph supported her, then that would be too exaggerated. Joseph Grant frowned. He had an impression of his, remembered to help a woman, Her car was startled by my car passing by, and fell down. I personally went down to help her. That's right, that's her. Do you think she's beautiful? Seeing that he remembered, Alvina Miller immediately asked him a question that made him speechless. I have some impression of her. She was here to receive us at a few meetings, and she's quite pretty. To be honest, Alvina Miller was immediately anxious with him. Alvina, you look really cute when you're jealous. None of the women in the office are bad. For the sake of the country's image, they will all be selected based on their appearance. Do I like all of their looks just because they are beautiful? What do you take me for? Joseph Grant was almost amused by her. He was so bad that he wanted to see her angry look. Only then did Alvina Miller realize that she was too petty, and instantly lost face. She reached out her hand angrily and grabbed his handsome face, and opened her mouth to lightly bite on his lips. Joseph Grant was already used to this woman's doggy attributes, but when she tried to bite him, he decided to give her a counterattack. This was the first time Alvina Miller felt that she was bullied to a miserable state. Her back was stuck to the hard and cold tabletop, yet the man's body was burning hot like fire. Alvina Miller could only press her body close to him with all her might because she yearned for warmth. When Joseph Grant pulled back his rationality, he realized that he had actually pressed her down on the table, and had bullied her for a good while. But fortunately, he did not make such a big mistake and quickly calmed himself down. He gently pulled her up and tidied up her messy hair. What do you buy just now? It smells good. Alvina Miller then suddenly thought of the pancakes she had bought. They were probably cold now. She jumped down from the table and went over to touch it. It was still warm. I haven't eaten my fillet tonight, so I bought a pancake by the roadside. You can have one too. It's pretty good. Alvina Miller took out gloves and gave him one. Joseph Grant did not mind. He accepted it, but his eyes continued to smile as he looked at her. Do you hear the words of the other party that are going to confess to me? Affect your appetite? Of course. I can't accept this kind of thing. It seems that I don't have any more friends in the future. Alvina Miller bit on her biscuit as she felt depressed. Kelly was the first friend she had ever made in her office. If you want to be friends, then do it with sincerity. If the other party is friends with you, then it's only because they see that you have a profitable relationship. Then stay far away from them. Joseph Grant consoled her in a low voice. Oh, I will no longer randomly make friends in the future. At the very least, I do not wish to make sincere friends so easily. It is all right to have a friendship when one nods one's head. Alvina Miller had an expression of being enlightened, and she started laughing. I have a good friend. You should have met his wife before. Maybe you can make her friend, Joseph Grant said with a smile. Is it Claire? I went abroad to ask for her help last time. She's so nice. Alvina Miller nodded her head strongly. There were some people that had that kind of charisma. Although they did not have a deep friendship, they were reliable and gentle. Yes, I'll bring you to see her when I am free, Joseph Grant said as he nodded his head. All right, I look forward to it. Alvina Miller also laughed happily. Joseph Grant watched as she ate the pancakes without looking like a girl at all, and one of them was taken out in an instant. It seemed that she was really hungry. After finishing the 2 pancakes, Alvina Miller was full. She looked at the man again and saw that he was still half done eating. She immediately blushed. Oh no, had she eaten too much just now? There's still half of it. Eat it. Joseph Grant was only having dinner at a party that night, and he wasn't really full yet either. At the moment, the pancake was fragrant and it did make one's appetite rise, but he restrained himself, leaving the other half for her to eat. I'm not eating. You eat it. I'm full. Alvina Miller immediately shook her hand, and then took her bag and went upstairs. After walking 2 steps, she turned around and looked at the man. Are you staying tonight? Maybe not. I have to leave today, so I can't stay here for the night too often, Joseph Grant said in a low voice. Oh, then when will you leave? Alvina Miller's heart ached slightly. It's about time. The Lieutenant Hilton and the rest should be coming soon. Joseph Grant raised his wrist and looked at his watch. Alvina Miller suddenly did not want to go upstairs. She turned around and returned to his side. What's wrong? You can't bear for me to leave, right? Joseph Grant asked with a gentle smile when he saw her dejected look. Yeah, Alvina Miller immediately threw her bag onto the sofa, walked to his side, and hugged him. Joseph Grant, I finally understand why I'm so deeply in love with you when Callie hasn't interacted with you before. You can make me crazy. Joseph Grant's body trembled as he looked down at her. Her eyes were tightly shut, as if she had fallen asleep in his embrace. Alvina, I'm not as good as you think. Don't destroy my imagination. You are so good. The girl's face rubbed against her chest twice. Stand still and let me hold you for a while. Joseph Grant was really standing there without moving. He felt that the girl in his embrace was really planning to sleep, so she did not say anything, and did not move at all. Joseph Grant didn't know what to do until his phone rang. Alvina Miller took a step back, and with a face full of tenderness, she said lightly, you should pick up the phone. Maybe Lieutenant Hilton is here. You're right, it's him. Alvina, I'll be leaving first. Take care of yourself. Joseph Grant reluctantly touched her head, then turned and walked out. Alvina Miller looked at the man's back as he walked through the long corridor outside the hall. Alvina Miller let out a light breath, then suddenly smiled. Just now, Joseph Grant had said a sentence. He had only treated her with gentleness. He had never treated another girl like this before. All right, taking advantage of his sweet words, she finally had someone to rely on throughout the long night. Bat's family. Many people started to sympathize with Bella-Ann and her daughter, and there were even people who began to publicize Beverly Batts's actions from before on the internet, making it a place for others to mock them. Beverly Batts was going crazy. When Gabriel Addison entered the house, Beverly immediately went up and fiercely slapped him twice. Why don't you die outside? You still have the face to go home? What have you done to this family? Mom, don't hit Daddy. Amanda Addison and her brother ran down from the stairs and stood between the two of them to stop them. I'm here to pack my stuff. I've found a new place to stay. I need to move out, Gabriel Addison said indifferently, ignoring Beverly Batts's anger. Dad, are you moving out? Don't leave. We are family, Amanda Addison instantly cried. The once proud little princess was now about to be abandoned. She was extremely afraid and uneasy. Get lost? Hurry up. Don't think that I will die without you. However, Beverly Batts was furious and roared, ignoring the relationship between husband and wife. Gabriel Addison walked upstairs with an expression of helplessness. Halfway through, he suddenly heard his daughter screaming, Mom. Gabriel Addison frowned. He turned and went downstairs, only to see Beverly Batts lying on the ground with a fruit knife in her hand, blood flowing profusely from her wrist. Dad, Mom cut off her wrist. Hurry and send her to the hospital. Amanda Addison was so scared that his face turned pale. Gabriel Addison was helpless to the extreme, but his life was in danger. He could only run down and ask Beverly Batts, "Why do you do this? You don't want us three. Why am I still alive?" Beverly Batts cried her heart out. Gabriel Addison knew that she was acting again, but in front of his children, he had nothing to do. Chapter 1295, Sex of the Little Guy. Gabriel Addison and Amanda Addison brought Beverly Batts to the hospital together, and Beverly Batts looked as if she was about to die. Her eyes were red from crying, and after sending her daughter Amanda Addison out, she suddenly pulled out a needle and jumped off the bed. In the next second, she was actually kneeling in front of Gabriel Addison, grabbing onto Gabriel Addison's arm tightly as she sobbed, "Darling, darling, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Please don't leave me, okay? We have children. We've all lived for so many years. Don't leave me. I'm begging you." Gabriel Addison did not expect Beverly Batts's attitude to suddenly change greatly. She let go of her pride to beg for his mercy, and he looked at this pitiful or hateful woman, and was unable to say anything for a long while. "I was wrong. I will change everything in the future. My daughter has reached the age of marriage. My son is only in middle school. They need a complete family. Darling, I'm begging you, don't divorce me. I still love you very much." Beverly Batts, what's the point of saying all this now? There's no longer any love between us. Even family love is just maintained by our children. Let me go. Gabriel Addison was truly tired, and even more so. Have you fallen in love with Belen? You want to be with her, don't you? Beverly Batts's eyes became fierce, as if she wanted to kill him. "You think too highly of me. In your eyes, I may have some bright spots, but in Belen's eyes, I may not even be able to compare to the mud at her feet. She has achieved success in her career, and her daughter has grown up, but she is still young and beautiful. You think she will find me again?" Gabriel Addison laughed at himself, showing no mercy. "Gabriel, you're nothing in her eyes, but in my eyes, you're still my husband, my star, my son. We can still be like before. You go to work. I'll take care of the family." Beverly Batts, wake up a bit more. Gabriel Addison suddenly flung her hand away with all her might, his gaze cold. Beverly Batts lied on the ground. She was stunned. She couldn't understand why her marriage had come to this point. "Gabriel Addison, have you fallen in love with another woman? You want to marry her after you divorce me?" Beverly Batts was still unwilling to believe that she had failed to such a degree. Her husband actually treated him with such cold despair. "There are no other women. I am just tired of our relationship. Don't worry, after the divorce, I will still take care of the children. Moreover, I will not marry again." After Gabriel Addison finished speaking, he turned around and left. Beverly Batts laid on the ground. Her eyes were empty, and her expression desolate. Amanda Addison pushed open the door and entered the room. Seeing his mother, who was sitting on the ground with her eyes wide open, she rushed over and cried, "Mom, did you and Dad fight again? Don't argue with him anymore. If you keep on arguing, you're really going to get a divorce." "Daughter, is Mommy really such a loser? Is Mom really not attractive enough to be a woman at all?" Beverly Batts covered her face. She cried and felt regret. Mom, don't say that. I'm scared. Amanda Addison hugged her mother, her heart cold as she entered the valley. After the mother and daughter cried for a while, Beverly Batts said in grief and indignation, I admit that I'm not good enough, but if it wasn't for Bella Ann and her daughter, we wouldn't have reached this step. In the end, they will also be responsible. Mom, what else do you want to do to them? Amanda Addison was startled. I want to kill them both. Beverly Batts gritted his teeth in hatred. Mom, don't do anything stupid. Killing people is a crime. We can't do it. Although Amanda Addison was strong, she was calm and clear-headed. I can swallow this hatred in my heart. I must find a chance to make them pay for my despair. Beverly Batts cried as she covered her face. Mom, let's talk about this later. It's not too late for women to take revenge for 10 years. We can be villains. The mother and daughter are waiting and seeing. We won't recognize them just like that. Amanda Addison calmed her mother's emotions for the time being, and her eyes burned with hatred. No one could persuade Gabriel Addison to divorce them. In the end, he signed on, and the relationship between husband and wife ended. Amanda Addison could no longer be proud. The smile on her face gradually became less and less. Even her little brother's grade instantly dropped, and he started to learn how to smoke and fight. Joshua Wilson and Elizabeth's relationship had also reached a public level, so Joshua decided to announce his relationship with Elizabeth at the company's quarterly party. Once again, he seized the leading position. Joshua had retreated behind the scenes. The company's management was stricter and more orderly, riding some of the bad weather in the entertainment circle. They had officially cleansed the dark rules of the industry, giving many new people a chance to stand up for themselves, suppressing the shameful behavior of asking for prices throughout the sky. At the same time he received the applause, he naturally touched upon many people's interests. As a result, Joshua not only received glory, but also received doubts from many people. The young, arrogant, self-righteous label was secretly affixed to his back. In the morning meeting, Joshua had expelled one of the senior management staff on the spot, after he changed this rule that required a sky-high price. Some of the relationships between the backstage and the backstage had also surfaced. He had directly cut off a few of the higher management's profits, so they were naturally full of resentment. Joshua's actions became more and more decisive with his big brother Dempsey, so, taking this chance, he had cleaned up his own residence, but as the fowl for food, he created a fortune. As Joshua took up his new position, he did not have a good grasp of the situation. Some of the higher officials who were suppressed by him became indignant, and after some discussion, they decided to teach Joshua a lesson. And as the time came after the company's quarterly dinner, Elizabeth stood in front of the mirror and turned her body a few times. Looking at her stomach that had straightened up, she couldn't help but feel dissatisfied no matter how she tried. Recently, Kathy let herself fly and took her girlfriend out of the country to play for a bit. When she came back, she was naturally happy to hear that Joshua had invited her and Christina to join his company's dinner. Kathy, I feel like I shouldn't wear such a tight, fitting body. This will expose my stomach too much, Elizabeth muttered softly. Eliza, you have to be confident in your figure. Look at you, from the back. You don't look like a pregnant person. Your waist is really beautiful. Truthfully, other than Christina, I have seen your most beautiful body. Kathy sat by the side with her legs crossed, eating and drinking while explaining her intentions. All right, since I have to choose something to wear tonight, I will listen to you. Elizabeth was so praised by her that she floated. I'll be calling you Wilson family's second young mistress soon. It's really exciting. Kathy squinted her eyes and joked. Don't make fun of me. For Joshua and I to have such a day, I really have to thank you for your help, Elizabeth said while looking at her with sincerity. Don't look at me like that. It makes me feel like I have received a lot of rewards. Like I said before, Joshua and I are using each other's money. No one owes anyone else. Kathy was not a sentimental person. This kind of emotional scene did not suit her. Elizabeth had long understood her straightforward nature. She lowered her head and chuckled. All right, when this child is born, I will definitely make him recognize you as his godmother. Only with you and Christina loving him will she be able to be truly blissful. Of course, if you don't want me to admit it, I have to admit it. After all, there won't be any children between me and Christina. Kathy was immediately overjoyed. She walked in front of her and crouched down, then used her hands to lightly pat her stomach. It's so easy to move. It must be a kid. Kathy felt that it was extremely strange. She would only be able to interact with him when he was still in her stomach. We haven't been there, so we don't know if it's a son or a daughter. Elizabeth chuckled. It's a son. I'm sure of it. Kathy laughed without saying a word. Elizabeth's beautiful eyes slightly widened as she looked at her in astonishment. Kathy, the last time you accompanied me to conduct a maternity examination, did you do something? No. Kathy immediately felt guilty. She turned around. I didn't sell the doctor. It's just that the doctor is my friend's distant cousin. Kathy, Elizabeth glared at her. All right, I stuffed a red packet inside and asked for it. It's a son. Kathy looked wronged. Chapter 1296, Replay. How could Elizabeth still be willing to blame her for Kathy's apologetic attitude? She reached out and hugged Kathy, and laughed in her ears. Thank you for letting me know the child's gender. Eliza, let go of my hand quickly. If Joshua sees this, won't he be jealous? Kathy immediately shouted out anxiously. Only then did Elizabeth let go. Seeing that Kathy was serious, she laughed at her. Could it be that I'm afraid you will like me? That's not necessarily the case. I'm a philanderer. I can't even resist beautiful women, Kathy said unrestrainedly. Then I must record what you said just now and let Christina listen to it, Elizabeth said mischievously. Eliza, I was wrong. You can't sell me out. If Christina listened to it, I would have to give her a month's gift to please her. As expected, Kathy suffered greatly, and quickly begged her for forgiveness with a bitter face. Seeing her bright and cute expression, Elizabeth couldn't help but Alice. Kathy, you understand a woman's heart so well. Be generous and gentle. No wonder even a woman can't help but fall in love with you. You better not be tempted by me. I'm afraid Joshua will use his blade to cut me, Kathy reminded her proudly. In the blink of an eye, it was already past 6 in the evening. The snow outside the window had stopped, but it was extremely cold. Joshua was dressed in a well-groomed black suit. His neat short hair was wildly combed backwards, revealing a face that was deep and sharp like a knife and axe. The word handsome was hard to describe with just one look. It was hard to imagine just how enchanting he was. given how many young and old girls he was being pampered by so many girls. When he pushed open the door to the bedroom, he saw Elizabeth chatting with Kathy on the sofa. She was dressed in a beige long skirt, which was adorned with bright water diamonds. As soon as Joshua entered, he heard Elizabeth's laughter. It could be seen that they were chatting very happily. "I've never seen you smile so happily while chatting with me." A certain someone was instantly jealous. Kathy quickly stood up. "Joshua, I'm not trying to seduce your precious woman. I'm just telling jokes to make her happy. I heard that pregnant women need to maintain a happy mood. Only then will the baby be smart." "Kathy, I really don't want to see you as a rival in love, but I have to admit, you're very good at dealing with women," Joshua joked. "Of course. Otherwise, why would Christina follow me so stubbornly?" Kathy was a little cocky. "Let's go. The car is downstairs." Joshua had purposely come home to pick up the two of them. "What about little Star and Fiona? Did you really send them to help?" Elizabeth asked softly. "Of course, they can also be considered my employees. Tonight's banquet is grander than usual, and we don't have enough manpower. Since the two of them are the people I trust, of course we have to send them over to help," Joshua said with a smile. Kathy nodded from the side in praise. "Then you'll have to pay them double their wages." "I won't mistreat them, don't worry." Joshua had always been a generous person. May and Fiona had always been his trusted subordinates, so he naturally would reward them in various ways. The car headed towards Star Entertainment Media. On the second floor of the Star Entertainment Media, there was a hall specially used for holding banquets. At this moment, it was brightly lit and the stars were shining brightly. The luxury car in front of the door had a long line of them. "Stop, I see Christina." Kathy's sharp eyes discovered that not far away, in a corridor, Christina was surrounded by a few men. "It seems that Christina is very popular." Elizabeth also saw it and couldn't help but laugh. The car stopped, and Kathy immediately opened the door and ran out. Christina was wearing a traditional Western dress, with her long black hair flowing down to her shoulders. She did not have any particularly bright ornaments on her, but just standing there was enough to stun all the men. Her posture was graceful, and she stood very straight. Although her long skirt was very wide, it couldn't cover up her feminine charm. The few men beside her were trying their best to find a topic to talk to her. Seeing that she came here alone and not looking like any female celebrity, with a gentle expression, it was obvious that she was a virtuous and good wife that could be married off to her family. Which man would be willing to let her go? Christina's beautiful face showed her impatience. What are these men trying to do? Kathy suddenly appeared from the side and Christina immediately revealed a happy expression. The few men around her saw a beautiful and sweet girl appear, and their faces were filled with amazement. Different from the indifferent and cold temperament that was like fireworks on Christina's body, Kathy was definitely that kind of brilliant and eye-catching fashion pet. "What are you guys doing?" Kathy slightly raised her brows, and directly reached out and held Christina's hand. Of course, those men hadn't noticed anything amiss yet. Each of them could conceal the thirst in their eyes as they smiled and asked, "Beautiful girl, are you interested in being friends?" Immediately after, they took out their name cards, looking like they were the people in charge of some company. But in Kathy's eyes, all of them were men with only one label, perverted wolves. Not wanting to waste any more time with these men, Kathy turned around and kissed Christina on the lips. The sudden sweetness stunned the few men beside her. This is my girlfriend. You won't have another chance. Hurry up and leave. After Kathy finished speaking, she grabbed Christina's hand and walked towards the hall's entrance. Christina lowered her head and smiled bashfully and sweetly. Kathy, you've come at just the right time. Those few people are too annoying. I'll follow you wherever you go. Christina, that's because you're too beautiful. Men are like seeing a flower, unwilling to let go. Kathy also laughed and praised. I'm already wearing plain clothes. Christina tugged at her voluminous skirt. I know, but you have the temperament of a good wife and a mother. The eyes of a man are sharp. Looking at such a gentle and beautiful woman like you, I want to marry you, Kathy said with a face full of resentment. I'll follow you for the rest of my life. If I want to marry you, I'll marry you too, Christina replied while laughing secretly. I like hearing that. Kathy was ecstatic. At the entrance of the hall, a black car stopped and the door opened. Joshua walked out and bent down to take a walk, causing the media to immediately explode. Everyone was looking forward to Joshua bringing a female companion to the banquet today. When they saw Joshua get out of the car, he bent down to hold a woman's hand, waiting nervously. It's Elizabeth. Why is it still her? Is she pregnant? She must be pregnant. This belly is showing. Everyone was shocked. A while ago, when Joshua and a certain rich girl spread the rumor about him, there had been no rumors about him anymore. Everyone thought that he had already tried to find a girlfriend to keep a low profile, but now, it seemed that he was keeping a low profile because his true love had never changed. Elizabeth was so blinded by the light that she could not help but raise her hand to block it. Joshua reached out and wrapped his arm around her waist, and under the escort of a few bodyguards, he walked into the hall with big steps. Inside the banquet hall, the new boss of the entertainment circle had gathered. The female celebrities were all dressed up with great care and were all dressed up. Bayou Group had brought in a lot of new stars this year. During this ceremony, many female celebrities had an unrealistic idea, which was to take this opportunity to attract Joshua's attention. Everyone knew that Joshua had not spread the rumors about his girlfriend yet. Previously, his relationship with a young miss from the wealthy class family had ended without a hitch. However, when they saw the couple that walked in hand outside the banquet hall, everyone's gazes were completely transfixed. They were all from the female celebrity and they had expressions of disbelief. Elizabeth, why is it her again? Could it be that Joshua has been dating her this whole time? Didn't they say her mother was a murderer, and even caused the death of Joshua's father? Everyone was shocked, because the matter regarding Elizabeth's mother was no longer a secret. Elizabeth was still a little afraid. She stopped her steps and her body started to tremble.